Hello everyone, welcome to the next session on object level security. In today's session, we'll be talking about what is object level security, what are profiles, types of profiles, and certain important points to be considered while developing or configuring object level securities and specifically profiles. So let's start with what is an object level security. So object level security or object permissions provide you blintless way to control data access. You can prevent a user from seeing, creating, editing, or even deleting any instance for a particular type of object, be it lead, opportunity, custom objects, standard objects, and whatnot. Right? You can also control and hide like tabs and apps and a lot of other stuff. So, how to configure object level security? There are two ways to do that. Firstly, you can go through the profiles route, which we'll be discussing in today's session, and then the second approach is permission sets, which we'll be covering in the next session, right? So let's start with what are profiles. A profile in Salesforce is a set of settings or permissions provided to specific Salesforce users that define the extent of action they can take on the Salesforce platform, right? So, for example, a profile is like Salesforce determined way in which users can access objects or data on the platform specific to some business processes. If I give you an example, right? For example, a sales guy needs to have access to an opportunity, probably and lead, right? And a service guy might need to have access to work orders, cases, entitlements, and stuff like that. So these are two different set of people, and we can have two different set of apps configured or tabs configured for these guys, and this can be controlled by profiles. So profiles are really a great tool to configure for different set of scenarios of users, and it adds a lot of value when the user logs in and he is not able to see any and everything in the system. The system is also a lot more protected, right? So that adds a lot of value. Now talking about what all can be controlled by a profile, right? So you can control object permissions, field permissions, user permissions, tab settings, app settings. You can even control Apex classes access, page layouts, record types, login hours, IP ranges, password policies, like we also discussed in our previous session on organization level security. So all these can be controlled by a profile. Now, the important point here is there are two types of profiles. One is standard profile and other one is a custom profile. So a standard profile is simply a profile which is provided by Salesforce by default. Like we have standard objects provided by Salesforce. Similarly, we have profiles also provided by Salesforce. Now the limitation here is that you cannot change the access levels in these profiles. You need to assign these profiles as is to the user. Now suppose you wish to change the profile access, right? So what you can do, there comes the custom profiles into play, wherein you can clone a standard profile corresponding to a license. Another important point to remember, all the profiles are associated to a license, right? And the license is associated to a cost in Salesforce. So you can clone whatever license profile you want. Just clone it out, give it a beautified name or whatever you want to call it, and then you can control the access levels there. But the license still remains associated to the profile, even if it is a custom profile or a standard profile. Now, talking about certain important points to be considered or to remember while implementing profiles for your users. So, object permissions on the standard profile cannot be edited, like I mentioned, right? So, every profile should have at least one app visible. Now, another important take home from here is that suppose say Nick logs into the system, he's been assigned a profile of a sales manager, but there is no app assigned to him. It makes no sense, right? Because he won't be able to see anything. Now, the third point here is that even if an app is visible and the object level access is not there, so for example, you have given the access for a app, but you have not given the access for different objects, he won't be able to see the tabs, right? Or if you have given the access to the object, but you have hidden the tabs, he still won't be able to see it. So make sure you have given the tab access and object level access to at least view, right? Great. Now, the last and very important point is that only one profile can be assigned to a user. You cannot assign multiple profiles to a user. Right? A single profile can be assigned to multiple users, but one user can have only one profile. And this is very key point to note. And extra access can definitely be given by permission sets, which we'll be talking about in our next session here. So since we have covered all the important aspects, let's dive into the dev work and do some demo and understand how we can clone a profile, what accesses can be controlled, and what to do and what not to do here. So I'm diving into my dev work now.
So guys, I've logged into my dev here. Let me go to the profiles. So you can go to setup and type in profile here. It will take you to the profiles. So as we discussed, right, there are certain standard profiles, certain custom profiles. I'll show you a couple of standard profiles. Like you see this analytical cloud integration user, this is the standard one. Then you have read only, right? This is also a standard one. Okay, then you have Salesforce platform user, Salesforce user. All these are the standard profiles, right? So if you kind of edit it out, you cannot edit it, right? Certain things you can edit, certain things you cannot edit. So suppose let's take an example here. Suppose you have two different set of users. One are called sales representatives, right? And the second type of users are sales managers. So we can create custom profiles. We can click on the new profile. We can select the existing profile. Let's say I want to select standard users. Okay, let's say, sorry for that. Let's say I want to select standard user, right? I'm not doing that because I've already created a sales manager profile previously, but yeah, you can select this. You can put in the profile name and then you can hit save it. It will create, right? So let's create two profiles. One is for sales manager and the other one is for sales representative. I have already created though, so I'm not recreating, but you can try it at your end. So I have this profile called sales manager. Let me edit it out. When you create a custom profile, you can edit the entire profile. There are no limitations there. So let's start from the top here. This is the profile name, and then you have some description you can probably add. It shows you if it's a custom profile or a standard profile, and also the user license. Now here you can see the custom app settings. If you want to, the sales manager to see all these apps, you can check them all. Otherwise, in case you want to remove certain, you can remove them, right? But make sure at least one is visible. Otherwise, what will the guy do once he logs into the system? And you can also mark them as default, that this is the default app that the sales manager should see. Then this is the connected app access. We will talk about this later. You have some tab settings. For example, you want to show the accounts tab, right? So you can put it as on. If you want to remove certain tabs, you can mark it as default off, or you can hide the tab, right? So these are the accesses which you can control on a tab level. Now talking about the administrative permissions, there are a lot of tons of permissions here. You can go through it. Like API enabled is something that the user can be used for APIs from external sources. This is one of the, then bulk API hard delete is another API access which can be given, right? So a lot of modify all means he can modify any and everything. So let's remove this out for now. So you can go through it. There are tons of permissions available here. View all data is that he can probably view all data irrespective of the security of the record level access, which we are going to talk in our next sessions to come here. View all users, again he can view all the users. View all profiles, he can view all the profiles. Manage IP access, he can manage the IP accesses, which we discussed in our last session on organization wide securities here. So these are some general permissions. Then over here, these are standard object permissions. So for example, I want that manager should be able to create, edit, and read the account information, right? So I've removed the delete access, view all access, and modify all access here. Or let me put it as he can also modify all. Okay, and remove the delete access, or view all and remove the delete and modify all access. If you check the modify all, it auto checks the remaining, because modify all means he can read, write, edit, and do, delete as well. So I'll remove the delete access from here. And if I move down, these are the session settings. You can control the session settings. It is like 2 hours, 4 hours is the recommended one. So, but yeah, you can do whatever you want to. Then we have some password policies, like we discussed in our previous session, right? For from user security perspective, this is really important. So make sure you configure it properly. Now let's hit save. So the profile is ready, right? And then I also have another profile already created for sales rep. Let me edit this one as well. This is also a custom profile with the same license. And here you can edit all the custom apps. And let's dive here onto the standard permissions. Let me remove all the access from here. It will be edit, create, you know. So I only want the sales representative to read an account and not edit anything, and probably they can edit the leads and all. Okay, so for leads, I can give them all the permissions. They cannot delete it out, yeah, but they can create, read, edit everything. Okay. Oh, sorry for that. Yeah, here we are. And it's not only about the standard objects, you can also have access to the custom objects. You can control that as well. It does not matter. Let me save this profile. Great. Now we are done with the profile configuration. Let's go to the users. So on users, I have two users here, Nick and John, right? So John is assigned the sales representative profile, and probably I have some license constraints, so I've not marked as active, but you can mark it as active and test it out. Or if you are using a DevOps and have some licensing issues, you can probably enable one, disable the other one, and test it out like that. So and Nick is the manager here, so you can log in from different perspectives and analyze the access levels, what happens when you remove the access. So this is how we majorly control the object level accesses from a profile perspective. In the next session or the next part of the same object level securities, we will be talking about permission sets and the use cases of permission sets, and what to prefer over what. So that is something we are also going to speak about in our next session.